A Life Singular by Lorraine Pestell. Transcript of the novel. Arriving at the memorial service on Saturday afternoon and passing a sea of faces he recognized, Jeff felt as if he were traveling through Lynn's life at warp speed. He had watched her parents, her siblings, and their families go in ahead of him to a series of polite ripples of applause. "Jesus, I hope they don't clap for us," he said to the children. "Just go with the flow, Dad," Jet hinted, feeling his father shaking beside him. "If they want to clap, they'll clap." In fact, the audience did far more than clap. As soon as those in the last few rows caught sight of the diamonds at the rear of the auditorium, an initial wave of applause fast escalated to cheering and shouting. The threesome strode to the front in lockstep, both energized and shocked by the extent of the reaction, finally taking their places in the front row, on the other side of the aisle from the Dysons. No sooner had they sat down than Jeff was back on his feet, beckoning to Jet and Kearney to follow him. He crossed sides to greet Bart, Mariana, and the rest of the blonde clan. The crowd gasped in bittersweet pleasure at the open display of support, and the concert's sponsor raised both arms to signal for quiet as the service started. Everyone fell silent as the lights dimmed on the stage. The Diamonds returned to their seats and waited for the afternoon's concert to begin. "We're sitting in the same formation as for our wedding. You're where I sat, mate," the father whispered to his son. "It's killing me, but it's kind of nice, too." "Sort of like a circle," Jet agreed. Jeff's chest twitched with a sharp pain at this very moment, acute enough to make him inhale in painful surprise. The children watched him rubbing his left pectoral muscle and saw a smile spread over his face. They made eye contact with each other in consternation, wondering whether this strange tattoo talk could possibly be real. Ben Jansen, another of Lynn's successful protégés, kicked off proceedings with one of the songs Jeff had written for his wife on their recent anniversary. "The Rest Will Be History," which had yet to be released to their waiting public. The perfect opening was followed by an address by Sir Bradley Morrison, who used his time to chart the superstar's career from primary school to high school, not only in terms of her achievements, but also in terms of the friends she made and the beautiful personality she possessed. As they wended their way through Lynn's early days, each new accolade or award was represented by a Melbourne Academy student of the same age, who wove his or her way onto the stage in front of the audience. Some were smiling, some cried, and some did both. Most daren't catch the eye of the show's special guests, likely under strict instructions from Kylie Jones. The humanitarian husband had requested that the service not concentrate too much on hits, medals, or qualifications, but rather on the human qualities Lynn had exhibited in abundance throughout her life. Her leadership as a child, her compassionate interest in others and in the state of the world, and her sense of team spirit in both musical and Olympic pursuits. Bart and Mariana Dyson were the next to stand in the spotlight, speaking at length about their daughter against a backdrop of photographs from the late 1950s and 60s, some of which Jeff and the children had never seen before. They described a happy girl, eager to do well and with a passion for fairness. In these pictures, the bereaved man recognized the girl of 10 or 11 years old with whom he had fallen in love way too early and for whom he had waited impatiently through those tormented teenage years. Junior and Anna followed their parents to give a whirlwind tour of their sister's sporting career, which spanned almost 30 years, from show jumping to tennis, and afterwards athletics and 3-day eventing. Almost every local musician who had learned his or her show business craft with the star pupil then joined the Dyson siblings on stage. John Betts and Richard Kerr became inconsolable as they told of the many tours they had undertaken with their fun-loving friend during their school years, and also later with Janice as adults. The musicians of the old days combined with the present-day members of the MA Orchestra and Chorus to perform a medley of their hits with Janice singing Lynn's part. Performers and audience alike found this trip down memory lane highly emotional, and Jeff spent the whole segment staring at the floor in an effort not to be drawn into the sadness of an era before he had even shown up on the starlet's radar. The dreamer's avoidance was to be short-lived, however. Straight after the compilation finished, Sir Brad turned to the sea of adoring faces again to announce the point in the young star's life when everything changed. Behind the orchestra's head and on enormous screens erected in various places in the gardens, the famous and unforgettable video of one of the couple's biggest hits, Everlasting, began. Looking up to see himself and Lynn as reunited lovers on tour in Japan, Jeff went to pieces. For Jet and Kearney, the sight and sounds of their father displaying his grief in the public spotlight were every bit as heartbreaking as watching their deceased mother on the big screen behind the performers. Their dad had made them promise to focus on celebrating their mother's life and to ignore any strange behavior he might exhibit. Yet such a task was easier said than done. They knew how painful this event was for him, acknowledging the tumultuous response from the audience on his behalf. The footage changed to edited highlights from the good-looking pair's wedding, and the applause and cheering was renewed. Jeff was due on stage in less than a minute and fought to regain his composure well enough to stand and face the noisy but respectful crowd. Following his cue from James Howard, he and the children rose to their feet and hugged each other for moral support. Dressed in his customary black, the lonely figure walking across the stage in front of the rows of Melbourne Academy students who knew the Diamond family so well drew audible gasps and some sobs from all around him. Nevertheless, this was Jeff Diamond's territory. Close-ups of his handsome face projected on the screens by close-up cameras, larger than life, albeit thin and drawn, showed him breaking into a broad grin. The local hero raised his arms to silence everyone. "Whoa," he sighed, throwing his head back and inhaling to stave off the dizziness. "You are fantastic. Thank you so much for coming out today, all of you. Hope the grass is comfortable out there." With this reference to the spread in the gardens, the audience in reserved seats were momentarily overshadowed as a huge cheer from those outside the venue rose above their own applause. "I have to tell you, this is not easy," the seasoned orator went on, lifting his hands again in an effort to bring the proceedings to order. "This is quite an ordeal for Jet, Kearney, and me, and for the Dyson family down there. But we're glad we're here, and we're mighty glad you're here. Your support for us over these last 2 weeks has been unbelievable, and I thank you from us all. This afternoon is all about allowing you guys to celebrate Lynn's life and to reflect on what she meant to you. I used to read some of your letters to her over the years, and I know Lynn Dyson Diamond was adored and respected by an enormous number of people." Another enthusiastic round of applause broke out, which Jeff again signaled with heavy arms to calm down. "We love you, Jeff," came a loud exclamation from somewhere in the first few rows, received an appropriately cheerful response. "Thanks, and I love you too," the celebrity replied, looking in the shout's general direction and wiping tears from his eyes. "So, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I was going to talk a little about when Lynn and I first got together. As you could see up on those screens, we clicked. For any of you cynics out there, and I was one once, love is real. Elton John sings a lyric every now and again that goes something like, "In the instant that you love someone, in the second that the hammer hits, reality runs up your spine, and the pieces finally fit." That's exactly how it was for Lynn and me, and we made the most of it every day. The crowd went crazy, not only at the image the master communicator had conjured up, but also because the big screens displayed the raw emotion brimming out of his eyes while he spoke. He was holding it together, but only by the thinnest of threads. The veteran performer struggled on. "But then I was going to talk more about later, after the newness had worn off and our relationship matured. I'm happy to claim I was there when Lynn discovered who she was. Teacher, mother, mentor, and friend to so many people. I was just saying to the kids the other night that their mama was driven by an unwavering desire to grow us all up. The widower did his best to laugh. The family's ever merciful fans helped him along. He dug his fingers into his eye sockets in an effort to stem the throbbing in his temples and took several deep breaths. He gazed down to the front row at his children, whom he knew were scheduled to follow this spot, anxious not to upset them too much. They smiled their support, and he turned away again, fast. Today's concert is a celebration of the adorable angel who filled all our lives with joy, the speaker went on. I want to let you know there was nothing left outstanding between Lynn and me, nothing I regret not saying, nothing I wish she'd said to me. The kids and I miss her terribly, and she knows that. I'm sure she's missing us too, wherever she is. I just have to figure out what I'm going to do now. An uncharacteristic silence chilled the air, leading the world changer to regret having bared his soul to such an extent. However, taking a moment for his words to sink in, his fans began to clap warmly, and one by one rose to their feet to salute him. Thank you, the humble man said into the microphone, urging everyone to sit down. Please don't make this about me. This show's all about Lynn. When we were expecting these wonderful kids down here, we discussed all those old-fashioned names like Constance and Prudence. And you know, there's a good reason those names came to be, because they're the qualities we all need more of. Lynn was the most constant person I've ever met. We even thought of equilibria, because her byword was balance. But that was too out there, even for us. Lynn never gave or took more or less than what was right. That's true wisdom. I always pretended to be smart, but baby, you were way smarter. Jeff looked up to the heavens, standing eerily still for several seconds while the tears flowed. Before he knew what was happening, his children were beside him, and the audience was once again clapping and cheering. The three stood arm in arm and took a single, deep bow. Ryan and Kearney Diamond, the proud father introduced with a flamboyant wave, exiting stage left to yet more applause. The orchestra scrambled to ready itself for Kylie Jones' baton, which called the musicians to arms with a flourish. The young stars stood side by side in the center and waited for the music to begin. They sang the song Kearney had written especially for this event, and a new and multilingual version of the hit which had captured the world's hearts when the family performed it to close the Feed Africa concert at Wembley Stadium in the UK. Janice Stansky's daughter Kara joined them to sing the German verse, which had been Lynn's back in 1985. Next up, Steve Christie, with Jeff's blessing, churned out one of his greatest hits, which had been collaboratively written for the stunning record producer several years in advance of his well-chronicled challenge for her hand. Lynn Dyson's school friends also sang a single number, albeit not particularly well, since all three remaining members of the original band were too overwhelmed by sadness, causing the conductor to move straight on to a spirited performance from the combined choirs. Afterwards, Professor Wilfred Halverson from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology spoke about the Good School program, which was these days being rolled out in 12 countries, aligned with the more progressive universities. He told of Lynn's vision of instilling young leaders with a selfless quality that enabled them to consider life's issues with a mixture of subjectivity and objectivity. Jeff jogged back up the steps to shake the professor's hand and thanked everyone again for their support. He waved in an expansive gesture towards Ben Jansen, who had reclaimed his spot at the grand piano to the right of center. To close tonight's show, the star enunciated clearly, I'm really grateful that Ben Jansen offered to perform one of my songs on my behalf. It's a few years old as it happens because it was written for Lynn on our 15th wedding anniversary, but it's never been out in public before. The bereft songwriter paused, gathering his faculties once more. It's called Original, and it's what Lynn means to me. Ben. The handsome idol left the stage again, to the opening strains of the song his wife had loved above any other. The audience sat in silence as the rich lyric was sung as only the soulful Californian could render, full of imagery and raw human emotion. The finale began with the soaring strings of World Children, the last track on Lynn's last album. Every celebrity guest, performing or otherwise, came up on stage and linked arms to give their all for the occasion. Even her husband managed to sing, or at least to mouth the words. Footage from a recent family documentary showed the deceased musician rehearsing this very track with members of present-day MA Orchestra and Chorus and the junior school choir. Bart and Mariana took their places with their remaining children and the diamonds at the front of the throng, and the song repeated. Kylie Jones and James Howard also stood next to the family, completing the picture perfectly. With a few closing words from Sir Bradley Morrison, the afternoon's concert was over, and the platform emptied into the cavernous area behind the backdrop. Chaos reigned for many minutes while orchestra members tangled their instruments and music stands with each other, and stagehands rushed to clear everything away to make way for the evening's scheduled orchestral program. Kathy's team at Stonebridge Music had arranged a reception at a hotel in the city for all performers and special guests, and her extended complement of staff were busy loading stars into cars. Jet and Kearney joined their cousins, and their car followed the Dysons to the function. The widower was not with them, having broken ranks yet again. He opted to take the scenic route, filled with silent contemplation and mixed-up emotions, ending up walking back along Alexandra Parade, past Flinders Street Station, and on through the CBD. He failed to stop on Collins Street, where he should have turned left. Instead, he continued northwards, up Exhibition Street, until he reached the apartment, exactly as the couple had done on their wedding night. Sitting alone on the balcony, the distraught man wept anew, rubbing his tattoo from time to time as he felt it sting. He had no desire to drink or smoke, to play the piano or write down the myriad lyric ideas which were filling his head. "I just want to be with you, Angel," he sobbed. "Where are you? We've given you a good send-off, and I know you'd have liked it, but I don't want you to go. Please don't go." His mobile telephone rang, and his heart leaped to a joyful but erroneous conclusion. It was his daughter, inquiring as to his whereabouts. "I'm at home," Jeff replied, sniffing back the tears. "Are you guys all right?" "You gave us the slip again," Kearney scolded. "We're good. There are hundreds of people here." "That's good," he smiled, interpreting her gentle tone. "I'll walk back in a while to pick you up. I don't want to stand around like I'm at a bloody cocktail party with people trying not to say what they really want to say." The youngster laughed. "It is exactly like that. We're with Bruce and Jazz, keeping our heads down. Jet really loved what you said about Mama, by the way." "I did too. He was really moved. Are you okay?" The father let out a long groan. "Yeah, I'm okay. I love you, Pequeñita, and that damned brother of yours. I'll see you in half an hour or so." Kearney hung up, resigned that it would be at least 2 hours before they would see the world's favorite husband at the party he had thrown for their guest of honor. She pictured her papa silhouetted against fading light on the balcony and wished she could be with him. He had seemed vulnerable and alone up on the stage earlier, and it made her wonder how long his wounds would stay so raw. How long did it take to get over losing a soulmate? Was it really worth loving someone at all, with the danger of losing him or her at any moment? She had listened to her parents having this very conversation a few times, never once thinking that they would be putting their theories to the test one